Good morning and welcome to the Lancaster County Board of Commissioners meeting for Tuesday, August 27th. I'm County Board Chair Sean Flowerday. With me is Vice Chair Rick Vest and Commissioners Matt Schulte, Rome Amundsen, and Christy Yoakum. Please rise and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Clerk, please begin.
A copy of the Nebraska Open Meetings Act is located on the wall at the rear of the hearing room. All written material to be discussed at today's meeting can be viewed on the county's website at lancaster.ne.gov. Printing options are available upon request. The first item I have is the minutes, approval of the minutes of the Board of Commissioners meeting held on August 20th, 2024.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Vest,
Yes.
Amundsen,
Yes.
Schulte,
Yes.
Yoakum,
Abstain.
Flowerday.
Abstain.
Motion carries. The second item is the claims, approval of the claims process through August 23rd, 2024. And I'll note there's an amendment to include the most recent payroll.
I would move that we approve the claims and include an amendment to pay payroll disbursements through August 21st, 2024.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Yoakum,
Yes.
Vest,
Yes.
Amundsen,
Yes.
Schulte,
Yes.
Flowerday.
Yes.
Motion carries. The third item is consent items. These are routine business items that are expected to be adopted without dissent. Any individual item may be removed for special discussion and consideration by a commissioner or by any member of the public without prior notice. Unless there's an exception, these items will be approved as one with a single vote of the Board of Commissioners. These items are approval of a right-of-way contract with Robert A. and Sherry S. Martin, North 27th Street and Mill Road in the amount of $154, a utility permit 2565 with Windstream Nebraska LLC to relocate fiber and conduit, a grant contract with the United Way of Lincoln for the Clarity Food Distribution Program in the amount of $8,000, and setting a public hearing on Tuesday, September 10th, 2024 at 9:00 a.m. in room 112 of the County City Building regarding an appeal on resolution PC-01920, special permit 24024 for a heliport on approximately 3.27 acres under the provision of section 13.012 of the Lancaster County zoning resolution on property located at 801 Crest Hill Lane, Davie, Nebraska.
We have a text amendment on heliports?
Yes.
Way to go, us.
We see that now.
I move approval of the consent items.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Schulte,
Yes.
Yoakum,
Yes.
Vest,
Yes.
Amundsen,
Yes.
Flowerday.
Yes.
Motion carries. The next item is item 5, public hearing action item. After a public hearing has been conducted and closed, action on the item that was the subject of the public hearing will be scheduled as a separate public hearing action item. Because of the public hearing has been conducted and closed on the item, no further testimony or evidence will be adopted or admitted during the public hearing action item of the agenda. But first, we need the public hearing, which is the amendment of the Lancaster County General Assistance Guidelines.
Okay, we will now open the public hearing for the Lancaster County General Assistance Guidelines. Staff wants to come down.
Good morning. Sarah Hoyle, Director of Human Services for the City of Lincoln and Lancaster County.
I swear you. Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, the General Assistance Guidelines, in state statute, we review them, update them every 2 years. So the updates this time around are minimal. We updated some of the bank account information so that it includes virtual banking mechanisms, PayPal, Google Pay, Apple Pay, that kind of banking information. And then the poverty guidelines as well as rent was also updated. Now this also will be updated annually because poverty guidelines are updated every year. So that's a minimum update. But otherwise, any questions on those minimal updates?
Only that I'm realizing that I'm not keeping up with all the apps. I've never heard of Chime or Zelle before for payments.
We researched them all.
I believe you. No, I believe you.
I have Zelle.
There you go. All right. Well, I'm not keeping
Not
up with
Chime.
it.
So what's an app again?
Right.
I appreciate that a red line version was applied, because it's such a long document, it makes it easy to identify those changes. Thanks for providing it that way.
I will add too, and I spoke with Dennis in Budget and Fiscal, general assistance with Medicaid expansion. We, the services and the funding that we attributed to it waned significantly. But however, Medicaid expansion was rolled out in 2020. So we downsized our office during the pandemic. And then shortly after that, we had the COVID relief funding come in to help with rent and utility assistance. And so while general assistance is meant to be short-term, and that's part of any application process, is showing that any assistance that you receive needs to be short-term and that you need to be able to sustain it. So think of somebody who's maybe applying for disability, so we know that they will get funding at some point, or somebody who has short-term, who's experienced short-term unemployment. We're starting to see an uptick now with the COVID relief funding gone of people applying. So for this month alone, we've fielded 25 calls since October 1st with people needing assistance. So while it hasn't impacted our budget yet, it could. So,
You said October 1st or August 1st?
August 1st.
Okay.
Yeah.
You said October.
I did. Well, I was hoping it was October already, but it's not. It's
Yeah, we all
August.
are. We get it.
Has the Medicaid unwinding affected your office and those calls?
No, not yet. No, the medical piece is covered, which helps the county significantly because that was the hospital, those kind of bills was a big burden on our budget. But no, this is people needing help with rent, utility, food, yeah. And to which too, they are referred to our nonprofit entities. It's just, they also are
Right.
suffering now with funding, so.
Any further questions for staff? No, thanks.
Thanks.
Is there anyone wishing to speak on the amendment to the Lancaster County General Assistance Guidelines? Any members of the public who want to speak on the General Assistance Guideline amendment? Okay, seeing none, we will go ahead and close the public hearing. Move on to the action item.
Item 5, the public hearing action item, 5A, amendment of the Lancaster County General Assistance Guidelines.
I would move approval of the amendment.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. Please call the roll.
Amundson,
Yes.
Schulte,
Yes.
Yocum,
Yes.
Vest,
Yes.
Flowerday.
Yes.
Motion carries. The next item is item 6, new business. 6A, resolution in the matter of final allocation of levy authority to all political subdivisions subject to Lancaster County levy authority.
All right, good morning. Dennis Meyer, Lancaster County Budget and Fiscal Director. Resolution today in front of you is just really kind of taking care of the 15-cent allocation that we must do. Once you approve it, then I will send it out to the miscellaneous subdivisions so that they can kind of start their budget process. So, a couple things just with this resolution to note. At this point in time, we talked about the dollar amounts probably a week, 2 weeks ago. The only change, once the evaluations have come in, that's on the document that's on the agenda, is bumping up the Ag Society Capital Fund by $1 million and reducing the RTSD by $1 million. That is really the only change from what we had kind of talked about.
And I appreciate that, Dennis. I have distributed a resolution to the commissioners, and I apologize for getting it to you at this point in time, but I have discussed it with everyone. there is a proposal to move an additional 250,000 over what's on the agenda into the Lancaster County Ag Society Capital Fund. This document on the second page reflects those adjusted numbers. It still leaves $8,384,000 in the RTSD while increasing the Ag Society's capital fund by the additional 250 over what's on the agenda. Hopefully that made sense.
I like the $250,000 increase there because it means that we can fully capture the matching money from the state. Isn't that our belief here? Right. No,
Yeah,
I think that
that's
makes.
my
I
understanding.
think that makes a lot of sense, just in terms of maximizing dollars for this. So I'm on board with it.
And I actually would, I approve of that also, and I think that that would be something that is very beneficial for the Ag Society, and I would move that we make that change.
I would second. And as a further comment, let me be clear of my unyielding support for the project at 33rd and Cornhusker. If I thought this was damaging to the future of that project, I might be looking at this change differently, but I feel very confident about where the work that's been done and where we're at and what the future holds for changing that corridor. So I think this is the best interest the county can make at this time.
Yeah.
Just clarifying with you, Dennis, so with these changes, what would the what would the property tax impact be on people they're paying? So what's last year's total versus this year's total of the levy?
So you're talking on the overall 15 cents.
Yeah.
That's kind of a tough question to answer, but what I will give you is, you know, when I look at the overall 15 cents, I always include the Raymond Rural Fire District because they're the highest fire district levy out there. So if you are living in Hickman or Firth or Hallam or the Highland Rural Fire District, this will not be exactly yours, because if the Raymond Rural Fire District is at 8.46 cents, we've actually got Highland that's out there that's less than a penny. So individuals living in Highland are that much lower. So basically,
Actually, let me ask you a slightly
Okay.
different question.
okay?
How about the county-wide ones? The county-wide ones, which are the Ag Society, the RTSD, the Building Commission,
So
And the
so
library.
basically, with those together, you're probably talking that it's probably between 3.5% and that 3.88%.
increase
Yes,
in actual dollar amount.
because yes,
Okay.
yep.
As far as the movement that we are proposing today,
From my original resolution changes,
Right.
nothing overall.
Right. Then
It's even.
it nets out the same.
Yes.
Yes.
I think that's what we're trying.
But yeah, so Matt, on your question, some took 3.5% because the lid allows for it. Others have the ability to take the whole 3.88%
Okay.
on the valuation. So, so really no real increases to levies, just based off the valuations and the tax request.
In general, I'm supportive of increasing the capital fund to the Ag Society. I see there's a couple people here from the Ag Society. Would either of you want to talk at all about what your hope would be to do with some of this additional funding?
Ron, if you want to
Yeah, come on
come
up.
forward.
Good morning. Ron Bellotti, I'm the interim managing director for Sandhills Global Event Center. We have a number of capital projects that we're already started on, and some of them will continue into the next couple of years. Some of those are turning some of the gravelled, or some of the grass lots into a gravelled area so that we have more parking for the rodeo and some of the larger events. We have some HVAC units in the building that need to be upgraded or added to, so we don't have to have remote units for some of the shows. There's a Wi-Fi to cover the entire complex. Everybody comes out there and they expect, streaming video when they're in the campers, as well as the campground that has been built and we're expanding now We're live online. We got about 70% of the market and substantial increase this year. So we want to add some lighting out there, possibly a bathhouse, maybe a playground, dog run, a gathering spot, those type of things in the future that will really benefit everybody that comes to the events, not just one type of show. The air conditioner in particular, I'll say, for the 4-H events that we have and a lot of the horse shows, that's going to help significantly. I don't know if you were at the Super Fair this year. It was pretty warm a few of those days.
I was out there a couple times for the Super Fair, and I appreciate what the Ag Society does.
Hey, Matt,
And,
let me kind of just chime in on just
Sure, yeah.
a second. When you're asking about projects and stuff for the Ag Society Capital, what we have to also remember is, because the way the lid is set up out there, is it's got to really be considered capital improvements, and it kind of really gets away from repairs and maintenance. So everything that Ron is throwing out to you should meet the definition of a capital improvement, and not just, hey, I'm putting new carpet down, doing things like that.
So it's not cleaning fees, it's actual improvements, which I think the things you described.
Yes, absolutely.
I've parked on the dirt.
Yep.
I've sweated in the
Yeah.
big barns
But
before.
the lid kind of drives everything for the Ag Society, so we do have to remember that it's always considered capital improvements and not just repairs and maintenance.
I did go to the Wiener Dog races at the Super Fair. That was super fun. For anybody who wants to come out next year, go check out the Wiener Dog
And well
races.
attended.
It was
Yeah.
very well attended. The stands were full, literally.
Hoot, 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 there was a ditch. I would just add that, what we've seen in the last couple of years, and any of the commissioners, we had the honor of being a part of the National High School Rodeo, and this is a world-class event, and I think it's coming back in 26, Ron?
And 27.
And 27, and so the expectations are we want to have a facility that's ready for an event of that magnitude, and this is a step towards giving them the tools.
Right.
That
Everything I spoke of is on the list that we've reviewed from the rodeo to make sure they're things that we improve on, so that when they're here, we can't check those off the list, and we already know that we're better prepared than the previous year.
Well, we talk about the rodeo because it is such a big thing. It's also going to attract the next big event and the next big event. So we have these amenities.
And I guess I'd just add one other factor, commissioners. I provided a sheet to everyone in their box, and it's available. I will give one to the clerk, so it's available. There has been a study done of the annual property tax support for county fairgrounds and ag societies. You'll notice at the bottom of the list is Lancaster County, and this was based on the reality that at one point in time, we didn't have our own fairgrounds. And we used the state fairgrounds very effectively. Once that was leaving town, we had to build our own, and we can argue about the decision made then, but it just seems like the funding mechanism for supporting our own facility was never quite actually put where it needed to be. So, and this chart will show we were the lowest by far. With this increase, we will move up to be the third lowest in the state per capita, but I think this is the appropriate amount and puts us in position to be successful at this facility. So,
Yeah. And for the clerk's office, there's a copy right here. They can-
and I did my own math on this, so I think I could pass a 6th grade math test if needed. With that.
Okay. Is there any
I
further-
do appreciate being able to see this because it does give us the right perspective. And I would argue that our event center is busier than any of the others on this list. Serves a lot more people, a lot more residents than anyone else on this list.
Okay. Any more
Have a-
discussion?
we have
a
a
motion
motion.
and a discussion.
We have a motion and a second.
Hearing no further discussion, please call the roll.
Vest,
Yes.
Amundson,
Yes.
Schulte,
Yes.
Yocum,
Yes.
Flowerday.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you, commissioners, and I'd be remiss without thanking all of our staff that work so hard and get us through the big events like the Super Fair. We wouldn't be successful without them, so, and thank you for your support.
Thank you. And I think that, help me out here, I think that was just a resolution to amend the number. I think we still need a vote to actually pass the
That's the way
overall.
it was framed, yes.
So, yes, right. Okay.
Okay, I would move approval of the final allocation of levy authority on item I.
And I will second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. Please call the roll.
Yocum,
Yes.
Vest,
Yes.
Amundson,
Yes,
Schulte,
Yes.
Flowerday.
Yes.
Motion carries. The next item is item 6B, an agreement for the county and the city of Lincoln to purchase real estate located at 815 K Street, Lincoln. The purchase price is $1,100,000, which will be paid using the Public Building Commission funds.
Good morning, Commissioners. Karen Peterson, Director of Facilities and Property. This is the actual purchase agreement to that, those lots of land. That's that final corner of the block. That's directly to the west across 9th Street. Do you have any questions about the agreement, or is there anything I can review for you?
well, I think that you had discussed that pretty well before.
Okay.
I would move approval.
I have a second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Great. Please call the roll.
Schulte,
Yes.
Yocum,
Yes.
Vest,
Yes.
Amundson,
Yes,
Flowerday.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Item 6C, Federal Equitable Sharing Agreement and Annual Certification Report for the Lancaster County Sheriff's Office regarding sharing activity of drug forfeiture funds for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2024.
Move approval. Oh, wait, the sheriff's coming.
Yep.
I'll withhold my motion until I hear what Terry said.
Good morning, Terry Wagner, Lancaster County Sheriff. This is the agreement we have with the Department of Treasury for our annual certification for Sarah to access those funds and to be a recipient. So this is an annual recertification of that program.
I move approval.
second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. Please call the roll.
Amundson,
Yes,
Schulte,
Yes.
Yocum,
Yes.
Vest,
Yes.
Flowerday.
Yes.
Motion carries. Item 6D, a subaward contract with the Board of Regents of the University of Nebraska on behalf of the University of Nebraska-Lincoln's Law Psychology Program for the Family Resource Center Juvenile Data Collection Program in an amount not to exceed $20,000.
Good morning, Sarah Hoyle, Director of Human Services for the City of Lincoln and Lancaster County. And this is just a contract with the university to evaluate data coming out of Square One or our Family Resource Center.
I would move approval.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. Please call the roll.
Vest,
Yes.
Amundson,
Yes,
Schulte,
Yes.
Yocum,
Yes.
Flowerday.
Yes.
Motion carries. Item 6E, a cyber policy renewal application for the county's cyber insurance policy with Coalition.
Good morning, Commissioners. Sue Eckley, Lancaster County Risk Manager. I'm sure by now you're thinking, how many more applications do we have to sign? This is the final one today. We are actively marketing the account. We'll be coming back to you in September with quotes and coverages, any change in coverages. I want to prepare you, property's probably gonna go up quite a bit. This application before you today is obviously for the cyber insurance, and I don't have authority to sign, so that's why it's before you. We'll get that over to Unico, and hopefully within about 2 weeks, we'll have some numbers that we can come back to you with. Do you have any questions on this at all?
No. I don't have anything.
I don't.
Any questions? Okay.
I move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. Please call the roll.
Yocum,
Yes.
Vest,
Yes.
Amundson,
yes,
Schulte,
Yes.
Flowerday.
Yes.
Motion carries. Item 6F, a recommendation from the purchasing agent on behalf of the property management director to award a contract to Clark and Anderson Incorporated for the Square One Family Resource Center design services in the total amount of $198,884.
Good morning, Karen Peterson, Director of Facilities and Properties. I'm excited to bring this for you today. There's quite a process. It's got ARPA funding. We went through the correct steps. We've identified what we believe is the best group to work with this project, and we're excited to get going. So they're teed up and ready to go. So I'm just asking for your approval on the contract.
I would move approval.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a
Let's just all
second.
say heck yes.
Sure.
Seriously.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Schulte,
Yes.
Yocum,
Yes.
Vest,
Yes.
Amundson,
Yes.
Flowerday.
Heck, yes.
Motion carries. Item 6G, a contract with Power Systems Engineering doing business as Daniel A. Newman to provide a bypass uninterruptible power system. The cost of the county is not to exceed $43,426.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Amundson,
Yes.
Schulte,
Yes.
Yocum,
Yes.
Vest,
Yes.
Flowerday.
Yes.
Motion carries. Item 6H, a contract with Nebraska Digging Services to provide channel repair of County Bridge A-113. The cost to the county is not to exceed $466,615.90.
Pam Dingman, Lancaster County Engineer. The exhibit that I've put up on underneath the new overhead shows the location of this bridge. This is for rehab of the bridge. What we're going to be doing is some improvements to the channel, as well as encasing the some of the piling so that we can extend the life of this bridge.
Pam, could you pull that up a little bit? We're only seeing part of it. There you go. Ongoing process for the engineers department. There's always another challenge coming for these folks. I move approval.
I'll second that. Also, it seems like you're making some good progress on bridges as a whole. I saw another one opened up yesterday.
Another one opened up yesterday. For the first time in 10 years, we have no bridges closed south of Pine Lake. So,
Great.
and if we're lucky, maybe we can move that bar a little further north later in the fall.
Bar a little bit further.
How many bridges do we have closed in total right now?
2.
That's, I mean,
That's amazing.
let's get them open, but like, ooh, that's amazing.
It's,
That's really good numbers.
It's been a journey for myself as well as our staff, and then we've had several dedicated local consultants that have helped us cross that line from 42 in 2019, as you may recall.
It's amazing. It's good work.
Well, oh yeah, we already got a motion second.
Yep, we have a motion and a second. Is there
Yeah,
any
I'll
further
motion it
discussion?
again.
Great,
I'll second this
Put
time.
an exclamation point on
great.
it.
We're all over the place with motions and seconds, but we're covered. Is there any further discussion? Please call the roll.
Vest,
Yes.
Amundson,
Yes.
Schulte,
Yes.
Yocum,
Yes.
Flowerday.
Yes.
Motion carries. The next item is 6I, recommendation from the purchasing agent on behalf of the county engineer to award and execute a purchase order to Gana Trucking and Excavating for supply and hauling of rock riprap material in the total amount of $22,379.05.
Pam Dingman, Lancaster County Engineer. As the commissioners are aware, when we reinstated our bridge crews a couple years ago, we now do a lot of our own repairs and renovations on projects. And so this is riprap, also more commonly known as the big rock, that we put around the outlet of our storm sewer projects in order to prevent additional erosion in the future.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Yocum,
Yes.
Vest,
Yes.
Amundson,
Yes.
Schulte,
Yes.
Flowerday.
Yes.
Motion carries. The next item is 6J, recommendation of denial from the Personnel Policy Board, request to revise the classification of correctional officer.
Good morning, Barb McIntyre, Human Resources Director. I just want to clarify, this says denial because when the County Personnel Board does not act on something and they do not vote, then it comes through to you as a denial, which is what happened here. And I will let Brad talk about the operational need. So the class already said that it was an essential function to be able to drive, but to provide clarity around what does that mean, not only do you need a driver's license, but we have to be able to insure you on the county side. So we tried to clarify that within this classification to make sure all our candidates understood it wasn't just and current employees wasn't just that driver's license, but also the insurance.
Done this for another, we did sergeants already? Or?
Yes.
Yeah.
And we'll be doing a review for all those classifications. There's various groups within the department that have to drive as a part of their job.
Any other questions?
I guess I was contacted by a representative from the FOP on this, so maybe a couple of questions. First of all, Brad, just talk to me about driving as a necessity. Part of their claim is that that's not a necessity. She's saying it is. Just help me understand what makes that a necessity for someone who's working in the jail.
Well, as an example, over the past 3 years, we've averaged over 150 days per year where we've had an inmate admitted at the hospital, which is roughly 45% of a year. Each one of those days, there's 6 correctional officers that have to drive a county vehicle out to the hospital to provide security or provide a break. Then we have times when we have to do kidney dialysis. We have to transport somebody to the dialysis area, and that's several times during the week. We transport folks to the crisis center. We're transporting folks to Washington County. Sometimes we transport folks over to the mission. I mean, we move inmates all around this county and now other counties really on a daily basis. The routine transports are being done by my transport division, going to court, things that are scheduled, but there are a lot of transports that aren't scheduled and fall to our shift to get completed.
Just to help me understand a little bit more on that. So how many staff are on duty at a time at the jail?
There's roughly 30 assigned to a shift.
So, I'm just generally saying, so you might have 100 people come through in the course of a day to work there, and you're saying we need the possibility logistically to maybe have 10 to 20 people be able to drive during the day. So that's a pretty high percentage of your employees that you could potentially have driving a day, right?
That's correct. And then, so if we would have to track folks who can drive who can't drive, so that we'd have to create a database, make sure that's kept accurate. Folks get put on it immediately. We don't accidentally remove somebody who should be on it, because if somebody drives who isn't insured and gets into an accident, where you guys are exposed to quite a bit of liability. And a correctional facility is a very complicated being. And when we start adding more complexity by trying to track things over 3 years, there's a lot can happen in 3 years. Mistakes happen, and it's an unnecessary risk, in my opinion. They get paid to do a job. Part of that job has always been that they have to drive. We're not changing that requirement. We're just making it clear and transparent in the job description. Nothing here is changing. This is status quo.
So I appreciate you. I feel like I now understand kind of the operational challenge of why people need to be able to have their license. Maybe a question for you. Part of the claim that was made was that our insurance doesn't insure people who've made minor infractions. Would you agree with that or not?
It doesn't, but that's actually a question for Sue if she's still here. She is. I am going to let Sue, our risk manager, come talk to you about that one, because we don't do the insurance for county and my team. Go for it.
So maybe just to restate it, since you were, the question, the thing that was claimed to me was that our insurance kicks people off for minor infractions, and that then creates too much of a burden for employees out at the jail. Just help me understand, is that true? Does it kick off?
All public entities have underwriting guidelines, and the underwriter at Continental Western sent, and I can provide that to you, I probably should have brought it today, a chart that says, okay, if these employees have this occur, they can't drive a county vehicle for 3 years. DUI, reckless driving, more than 2 or 3 speeding tickets within a period of time. So it speaks to behavior. If you have someone speeding in their personal car, that behavior may or may not change when they're in a Lancaster County vehicle. So the underwriter puts these guidelines in place. And we have had to tell people who had a DUI, sorry, you're fired. And I know it's tough for the departments because especially 24/7 facility, you have to staff it.
It's not just DUI. I mean, like, DUIs, yeah, I'm not that sympathetic. You get a DUI, your job is driving. No, you don't get to drive. That's what it is. And I'm kind of the same way on the reckless, but it's people getting kicked off for negligent as well, right? I mean, it's not just reckless and DUI. It's negligent, which is a far, generally speaking, a lesser thing, and it's that's where you run into. That's where it gets more complicated. And it's my understanding that insurance companies are getting less forgiving than maybe they were over the last, I mean, this is a problem sort of across the insurance market, not just with our provider, right?
Right. And I can tell you, I mean, I just use this as an example, Lincoln Public Schools. I mean, you're transporting kids, but Lincoln Public Schools, they used to have a 20-year exclusion. Now it's 10. They got it lowered to 10. That's still a long, long time. And certainly, Tom and I can go back to the underwriter and talk to them about. I don't blame Brad or anybody else saying negligent. Negligent is that catch-all that if I'm with law enforcement, I'm going to write a negligent ticket because that's easy to do for many, many minor type things, but that is on the list, negligent and reckless. So, and we can certainly go back and talk to the underwriter about that. I did get them to lower it from 5 to 3. It was 5. So
I mean, okay, you're telling me something that I've always heard wasn't possible. You're saying that you can go talk to the underwriter to see if they'd work with us on the negligent ones.
we may be able to do that.
I've always heard that we pushed and pushed and pushed, and we haven't been able to get that.
Sometimes they're very, very resistive. And we certainly can go to the head of that department and talk to them as well. They have their marching orders as underwriters, and as a former underwriter with an insurance company, it's very easy for me to look at a chart and go, okay, this is the rule, but it may not be right. So.
Well, I generally, and I think we would all agree that we need to be able to insure people that are driving for us. If this particular provider is creating an extra burden by including a negligent driving, I think we should do what we can to push back and either look for another provider. We could even consider looking at some self-insurance as an option, and we should also push the current provider to adjust that a little bit. And I completely agree with Commissioner Flowerday. DUI, stuff like that absolutely makes sense. We don't want people driving with that, but negligent driving, like you said, can be a rather minor infraction at times.
Certainly. I have talked to our actuary that if we wanted to go self-insurance, would they put the numbers together and figure that out? He said they'd want 10 years of driving history per department and whatnot. So I have talked to them about if we would go that route.
That's significantly more expensive?
Quite a bit. Quite a bit, especially the first probably 2 to 3 years. We'd probably pad that so that we'd have that money available for when we had those bad years.
Give me a ballpark.
I think he was saying, trying to think back here, it was months ago, I think he was saying like the average for a department with not that many vehicles, he would recommend like $50,000 to $75,000 for the Bigger departments, he would recommend 100 to 200,000, which is quite a bit more than we pay now. And in addressing another insurance company, there aren't that many that write public entities. And the other thing is Continental Western writes our property. So if we would pull that auto piece out as a standalone, we would probably lose more market access because companies don't want to write public entities. Auto tends to be a loser in bad years, so.
So we bundle to save?
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
Well, I still would like us to at least look into those options again, but I appreciate the additional information on the insurance, on the operations necessary that are leading to this change, so.
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely want to push back on the negligent. I guess we can explore my understanding on self-insurance was that it was always prohibitively expensive. If that's not right, then let's explore that. I mean, when you say 100,000, are you saying 100,000 per vehicle, per driver, what?
Per department, depending on the vehicles, like the departments having the newer vehicles, obviously it's going to be more.
Okay.
It'll be more expensive.
Yeah. I think we should explore what we can do to get the insurance company to work with us. I don't know is that it changes what we need to do here on this item.
Yeah.
Because it's still just saying insurable or not, right? I mean, this item saying they need to be insurable. We are trying to say that we want it to make it so that it is, that the insurance company is more forgiving. Commissioner Amundsen?
Yeah, I just was going to say, I do believe that the insurability question is really important. And I agree with you that I think that it really doesn't change anything really, just accept it. We just have to put that in there. We want our drivers to be insurable, and we want to be able to make that spur-of-the-moment decision to get somebody to the medical care or whatever it is. I would fully support Brad in making this decision on the requiring it to be requiring the individual to be insurable. To be insurable is just simply a responsibility of citizenship, I think.
So let's just be clear what we're doing here today. Negligent driving ticket, you receive one while you're working at the corrections department, you're dismissed from service. That's what this proposal would do, and that's currently the understanding we have with our sergeants. Is that correct? The sergeants are dismissed if they get...
We've had at least 4 or 5 cases of folks having negligent driving, and we've worked to have those set aside, so nobody's been dismissed at this point.
How many years after the negligent driving charge were these charges dismissed?
I think it ranged anywhere from 1 to 2.
1 to 2 years later, so that meant we kept them employed after the negligent driving charge.
Because it got set aside. And we didn't know that at that time, the insurance, we didn't know that they had a negligent driving issue until the review by the insurance.
I see. The insurance brought it to our attention,
Correct.
Therefore then we responded by getting the charge set aside.
Correct.
How many people are we short on staff out there now? Do we know?
Probably, I'm trying to think, 14?
Okay. So just back to my previous question. Our current policy is if that sergeants get a negligent driving charge, they're uninsurable, therefore they're dismissed from service.
If it can't be set aside or do a stop class, I mean, if all options fail and insurance, I can't resolve that issue, they will be terminated.
It's not as clean one for one as saying negligent equates to uninsurable, because ultimately that's not our call, that's the insurance company's call.
Yeah.
But a lot of times they are saying that, and that's the issue, right? We don't always know until we're in the middle of it, and then if they can get the charge set aside, that's better for the insurance. If they can go to stop or something like that, that's better for the insurance, but we don't know.
Okay, and last question, and then I'm going to make a comment before we move on. Did the union attempt to negotiate this during their most recent contract discussions?
It was discussed at the table, and we gave them the rationale Brad did for the operational need for all of this. But it was never, they never brought it as a proposal or any of that, but we gave them a heads up that we were changing the class. We actually did it during negotiations, which is what spurred the conversation at the negotiation table.
Okay.
And I do have Henry here who can talk to that also.
No, I think that's fine. That's enough information. So just to be clear, what we have is a position where we're saying, if you cross this line, the only option we have is to dismiss you if we can't get it overturned, but that takes time, a year or two. By that time, these
No.
people have moved on.
No, those are different things. I mean, it's they're not found, they're not uninsurable until the charge has been,
Right.
until they're guilty of it.
Guilt, okay.
Yeah.
So we'll keep them employed until said time that decision is made. So then during that process, we are going to be working with them to set aside the negligence charges. That's our goal.
That's been the past practice, yes.
That's practice. That's helpful. I appreciate that. I'm going to vote for this today. I think I've stated that to several of you. But I don't want this to be the end of the conversation. We need the people that are working out there. They're valuable to us. That's part of our responsibility, and good people are hard to find. Now, having said that, you all that are out there, you understand, these are responsible positions. What you do off the job matters too, so please respond accordingly.
Right.
But this area is a step too far.
And I'm really, really interested to know if there are other providers that'll work with us on this and see what those prices are. Now, we have to see the fiscal impact on the county before we can make any decisions, before we can know. But it's like, I've heard in my conversations about this that there wasn't a provider out there that would work with us on this, and that pretty much uniformly everyone was moving to a world where negligent driving was kicking you off the insurability list. If that's not true, I want to be very certain about whether or not that's true or not.
I think those provisions are pretty standard across public entities. The reason I keep throwing in public entities, that's a whole different ballgame when it comes to insuring vehicles and the person behind the wheel. So they are pretty standard though, Sean, across the board.
So is this a practice in all our departments, Sue? A negligent driving?
Yes, it does apply to all departments.
Engineering and weed control and any situation where you're driving
Right.
a
And
county vehicle.
let me kind of hop in real quick. Carrie Wiegert in our department runs those MVRs periodically. She gets a listing from HR and, okay, this person, it's time to run their MVR. That's one of the requirements we have from Continental Western. You will run those MVRs periodically. So sometimes I've got a clear MVR here and all of a sudden it pops up, oh, have a negligent driving. So then we have an issue. So, yeah.
So this would be a wide-ranging, not if we can change this one thing, it doesn't just affect Brad's
Right.
operation, it affects a lot of folks.
Yeah.
Okay, we will continue to explore this. I'll move approval,
I'll second.
and I don't even like it. I'm just telling you.
Nobody likes it. No one's happy.
No, nobody likes it. We have an obligation to ensure, to have people insured, but I agree, when we have employees that are good employees that have been doing good work, we want to work with them and keep them. We have that obligation as well.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Schulte,
Yes.
Yocum,
Yes.
Vest,
Yes.
Amundson,
Yes.
Flowerday.
Yes.
Motion carries. The next item is item 7, an executive session for union negotiations and legal advice.
I move that we go into executive session for union negotiations and legal advice and to protect the public interest at 9:53 a.m.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Amundson,
Yes.
Schulte,
Yes.
Yocum,
Yes.
Best,
Yes.
Flowerday.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, I would entertain a motion to come out of executive session.
I move that we come out of executive session at 10:27.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to come out of executive session. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Vest,
Yes.
Amundson,
Yes.
Schulte,
Yes.
Yocum,
Yes.
Flowerday.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Next item up is public comment.
Public comment. Members of the public wishing to speak on items relating to county business not on the agenda may do so at this time. Each speaker is limited to one appearance of up to 5 minutes, and that time may not be reserved, transferred, or otherwise assigned to other speakers. These time limits may be extended or reasonably decreased at the discretion of the chair.
Robert Borer. This is the story about how Robert Ebnen became Secretary of State. First, some backstory. The lobby for computerizing elections formed decades ago. Everything else was being computerized. Why not elections? There were huge reasons for not doing so at that time, but those reasons were not disclosed to the general public. People were then, and still are today, largely clueless to the shenanigans that can be and are being easily committed by computerized elections. But not you. You've been informed. Calling computerized election machine software and hardware proprietary is an act of lawfare. The process of addition is not proprietary, and writing code for addition is not sophisticated. Now then, the largest computerized election lobby/company in the country resides right here in Nebraska, ES&S. The time came several years ago when that company needed a new local puppet, or patsy, to run cover for them in our SOS office and wage lawfare against Nebraska voters by overseeing and protecting the administration of non-transparent, unverifiable, and easily manipulatable computerized elections. That company found their new local puppet in a large local law firm. His name was Robert Ebnen. He specialized in lawfare. The owner of ES&S, Michael McCarthy, and Robert Ebnen became friends. We might call them birds of a feather. Neither are nice men. Both are far from altruistic. Both love money and power. And computerized elections are all about putting money and power in the wrong hands. Ebnen's character can be seen in how readily he projects dishonesty on others. He did this to poor single mothers before a legislative committee, calling them all bribable, and the reason why we couldn't go back to hand counting votes. Of course, by doing so, he was readily admitting that there are people who seek to bribe others into fixing elections. The only thing McCarthy had to do was install Ebnen as secretary. It was very easy for him to do. He controls the instructions, that is, the software that goes into the computers that count our votes. He can do anything he wants. No one else is allowed to look at that software. The big question is, what would incentivize Ebnen to become McCarthy's puppet? Who leaves a secure gravy job at a large law firm to take a 5-figure government job? Who knows? But the history of the computerized election lobby is one of kickbacks and bribes, which everyone knows is why our legislative bodies are so corrupt. Computerized election machines are way overpriced, so these companies have plenty of money to throw around. All we know is that Ebnen has been serving as McCarthy's puppet ever since he took office. There's a reason Ebnen isn't allowing internal audit data that was designed for public consumption to be consumed by the public. But then again, given the nature of computers, that audit data would likely be useless if he did provide it because it could easily be manipulated before it was released. And herein do we find the reason why computerized elections are a very, very bad idea. You cannot trust them. They must have checks and balances. There must be a full manual audit every time. And that would completely defeat the purpose of using the computers in the first place. Some things simply should not be computerized, and elections are one of them. There's no proof Edmund was ever actually elected by a vote of the people. The numbers mean nothing. Vote counts are easily manipulated by McCarthy. It's not single mothers who needed to be kept away from. It's not single poor mothers who need to be kept away from counting votes by hand. It's rich people with their money and their computerized vote counters that need to be kept away from our elections. The members of this board are guilty of supporting this charade, this corruption. You have been informed over and over. Plausible deniability is out the window. There is a God in heaven and he hates injustice. Quoting Article 1 of our state constitution, to which you all took a solemn oath. And these rights shall not be denied or infringed by the state or any subdivision thereof. The right to an honest elected franchise is the first right. The second right is the right of rebelling against being excluded from the first right. You are all in trouble.
Okay, any other members of the public wishing to speak?
Good morning. I'm Dwayne Rauscher. I want to talk a little bit this morning about the Pledge of Allegiance that we said earlier. Y'all, I think, had said the words liberty and justice for all. That's part of that. Are we getting that type of service from you? Are we getting the liberty and justice for all? Robert Kennedy Jr. has just lately I heard him say that liberty is transparency. Where are we getting transparency? One thing I wonder even about this executive session you go into, is there confidential information in there that really the public should not be aware of? Where's transparency? Where's transparency in our election process that we go through? Why aren't we asking questions and getting down to details? You're more concerned about the spending money on bridges or other type of help, the corrections area, whatever it might be. But what are we doing about elections? Are we just covering it up? Are we acting as if nothing has gone on, nothing's wrong there? We're being told it's okay. We don't need to look and see what is actually being done. Part of your job is to be transparent. We need to see information about elections and the process that it goes through. Need you to stand firm to know what is right, the truth. We need truth. That's what we need. Thank you.
Any other members of the public wishing to speak? Okay, hearing none, we can proceed to announcements.
Item 9 is announcements. The Lancaster County Board of Commissioners will not hold a staff meeting on August 29th, 2024. The Lancaster County Board of Commissioners will attend the Federal Legislative Summit on August 29th, 2024 at 8:00 a.m. at the Strategic Air Command and Aerospace Museum in Ashland, Nebraska. The Lancaster County Board of Commissioners will hold its next regular meeting on Tuesday, September 3rd, 2024 at 9:00 a.m. with the Board of Equalization immediately following in room 112 of the County City Building. County Commissioners can be reached at 402-441-7447 or commish@lancaster.ne.gov. The Lancaster County Board of Commissioners meeting is broadcast live on LNK TV. LNK TV is available on Allo Channel 2 and Spectrum Channel 1300. For the rebroadcast schedule, visit lincoln.ne.gov. Meetings are also streamed live on YouTube and Facebook. LNK TV apps are also available on Roku, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire TV. And item 10 is adjournment.
Move we adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Yocum,
Yes.
Vest,
Yes.
Amundson,
Yes.
Schulte,
Yes.
Flowerday.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, we are adjourned, and now we will reconvene, we will convene the Lancaster County Board of Commissioners budget meeting for Tuesday, August 27th.
A copy of the Nebraska Open Meetings Act is located on the wall at the rear of the hearing room. All written material to be discussed at today's meeting can be viewed on the county's website at lancaster.ne.gov. Printing options are available upon request. The first item is a public hearing for the Lancaster County's proposed budget for fiscal year 2024-2025. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do. All right. Good morning. Dennis Meyer, Lancaster County Budget and Fiscal Officer. Oh, sorry.
We'll now open the public hearing on the Lancaster County proposed budget for fiscal year 2024 and 2025. Take it away.
Okay, again, Dennis Meyer, Lancaster County Budget and Fiscal Officer. I am in the process of pulling up just a few of the items that deal with the budget. So, on the agenda today, there's a couple items that can be pulled up. One is kind of just a breakdown of kind of some of the main items that I'm going to talk about today. The other piece with the budget reports kind of drops you out into the portal, and it kind of allows for you to kind of go around, look at whatever information you'd like. The story that's out there is also out in the portal, so if you can kind of see where I'm at right now, you'll see I'm on the reports piece. I'm going to jump over to the stories piece, and this is going to kind of explain what's really been kind of happening with the budget process. As you all know, this process started back in March, and so here we are doing our budget hearing, hopefully adopting it within the next week or so. The one item that I would just kind of start with before I start talking about a few of these numbers is when we built this budget, we kind of built the budget based off of a 4% increase in property tax along with the projected valuation increase of 5%. That's kind of what these numbers are kind of dealing with right now. These numbers have not been changed. Once the board makes their decision, we get the resolution adopted. I will then tweak whatever we need to tweak so that anything that is out in OpenGov is in agreement with all of that. So as we go through these numbers that we worked with and projected, the one thing that I want to just start with is actual valuation came in at 3.88%, which is lower than what I had projected. So that really is going to possibly require some changes. So let's talk about what's out there in the budget. If you scroll down, you will kind of be able to see what's out in the portal. There's a few charts, and then you can drill down on these, and it gets you down to really whatever information you want to get to. Proposed budget of expenditures is $273,719,000 and really $674. That's the proposed budget, and it's actually a decrease of about 2.83% from the previous year. That doesn't happen a lot of the times, but what we'll find out is, the last probably 3 years, ARPA drives everything. So if we think back about 3 years ago, when you throw $60 million into a budget, it just kind of skyrockets what you're spending. It really has nothing to do with your property tax request. All that it does is moves your spending up one way or the other. Now that we're into ARPA, our spending is decreasing because we've spent that much more. So that's kind of really coming into play.
And if there's one thing this last special session should have taught us, it's that the right number to look at you want to judge a political subdivision on how much on how much they're running on truly and how much they're spending, it's total property tax takings. That's the right metric. And then you should honestly, to be fair, you should back out growth and then account for inflation. And then you're really seeing if they're doing a good job or not.
Right. I mean, absolutely. And, you know, and as I show throughout the year, whether it's at meetings that I go out and speak at or whatever, I like to always show what's the property tax request versus what's happening with the valuation. Yeah. You know, that way a taxpayer can kind of see, you know, what's happening valuation wise and what's actually happening to our tax levy. Right. So I total agreement with you on that.
And you'll hear people say, oh, the budget went up 40%. Well, right, but property tax takings went up 3 or something. Right. And this year the budget's going down 2%. Okay, but the property tax takings are going up 3.8. Like you know, it's you should look at and I don't think some growth in that is a bad thing. I mean, that's normal. That's how you do business. But it's just I sort of hate the budget growth as a metric that is tracked because it just doesn't tell you anything useful.
And in governmental accounting, the way, you know, we handle transfers in and out of funds automatically pushes expenditures up one way or the other. You know, one of my numbers out there is our transfers in and transfers out this coming budget year is $21.2 million.
Right.
You throw that into a spending number, that's going to do something one way or the other. And all that so we really budget for it twice. Once when we transfer it, and then once when we spend it out of the actual fund. So governmental accounting can kind of be a little bit different that way. So Sean, totally in agreement with, you got to look at a lot more things than just what's that one number there.
It's often the least useful number and will make you think you understand what's happening when.
Right. I mean, so when we talk about some of this stuff, let's talk about the general fund. General fund drives all the property tax, a little bit in our building fund, but the majority of it's within the general fund. Our general fund is increasing by about $10.3 million. What's driving that? A couple things that I noted was, you know, personal services are increasing by about $3.5 million. That includes 6 new FTEs. It includes cost of living we're dealing with. It includes union contracts that have been negotiated that's known, and it includes health insurance increases. Another factor in that increase is we are transferring $3 million out of the general fund into our countywide sinking fund to really help with match for federal aid projects or for other projects that we're trying to put money aside so that we don't have to, when it's time to make that expenditure, come up with that full dollar amount, which could very well, you know, affect the property tax for that year. And then the other one that I noted is, you know, this year election commissioner is close to $493,000. This is the year that the most number of elections will be taking place. That completely drives that budget on an annual basis. So other things that are happening out there, I already talked about the grants fund decreasing a little bit because ARPA funding is down. You know, our budget for ARPA is really at about $13 million. So you can see 60 to 13. We're kind of getting through there, just like we really need to be. One of the other funds that's out there that's increasing at a decent amount is our visitors promotion fund. And again, ARPA is part of that also because we were paying for the Visit Lincoln contract through there. That's been stopped. Now we're back to funding that thing with really lodging tax. So again, really hasn't changed anything a whole lot. It just looks a little bit different when you're looking at budget stuff. The one new fund that we have this year is the broadband fund. we're actually in the process of transferring from building out the broadband to really getting into repairs and maintenance. So, so with that, we will kind of track all of that through a separate fund out there so that we can tie out what we're bringing in to what we're expending out. If I jump over to expenditures by function, when we look at that, this is looking at us as a whole with every fund that we have out there. Public safety really is a little over 40% of the budget. That includes law enforcement as well as other stuff, courts, county attorney, public defender, things like that. General government comes in second at just about 21%. That's going to include clerk, treasurer, assessor, register of deeds, items such as that. But as I also mentioned earlier, that is also where transfers between funds end up. And we were talking 21 million of transfers. That drives that number somewhat. And then in third is public works. That's, for the most part, is our county engineer's office, through the bridge and road fund, the highway fund. That's that's the number 3 function that we deal with.
What's that? Do you have that percentage, Dennis?
14.2. 14.2. So when we look at the 3 largest department budgets out there, number 1 is our county engineer, number 2 is corrections, and number 3 is county sheriff. You can see our county engineer and corrections is they're both real close, right around that $38 million number that's out there. If you scroll down a little bit, on the general fund expenses, you can see where salaries and benefits are really close to 56% of that budget. And that's why when we talk cost of living, when we talk union contracts, you can kind of see how much that can really drive our general fund. Budget of revenues. Taxes are the largest source of revenues for Lancaster County. It's about 55%. And when we talk property tax, we talk inheritance tax, we talk motor vehicle tax, and we talk property tax. All 3 of those. The thing that I like to remind everybody with our inheritance tax is that Lancaster County, we do deposit it into the general fund, and we utilize it as a revenue source on an annual basis. And it really, for the most part, it allows for us to drive down the dollar amount that we ask for in property tax. After property taxes, what you will see is, because so many times when we talk about us living off property tax as our main source of revenue, once we get past the tax piece, charges for services and fees drops all the way down to 18%. So we go from 55 down to 18. So that's the big size difference just in the types of revenues we're able to bring in. Cash reserve, with the budget this year, cash reserve dollar amount for our general fund stayed the same. It remained at just about $20.7 million. We were not able to adjust that for this fiscal year. The one thing that I would remind everybody is that it needs to be a topic of discussion on an annual basis. And if we make the decision not to adjust it, then that's the decision that's made. But we need to make sure that we all understand, the base that we're all shooting for is about 2 months worth of expenditures, which is about 16.67%. Right now we're at about 13.2. So not bad, but still not to the goal that we're actually shooting for.
And the reality is, even though the amount in the fund, the $20.776 million, stays the same, the percentage number is dropping. So towards our goal, we're taking a step back.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Because last year we were probably at like 14%. So now we've slid back to 13.2. So that's just, it's just an annual conversation because so much depends on what's happening for that fiscal year. One of the things that can come into play that can help the budget process or hurt it is just fund balance. This year, our fund balance in our general fund came in about $1.6 million higher than what it was sitting the previous year. That fund balance number comes into play as we do all of our calculations. So if fund balance comes in higher, then we roll it forward and we make the determination on what do we want to do with it. Sometimes we might use it for a one-time project. One time we might buy the property tax down. It just kind of depends on the situation. I talked about on the employee side of adding 6 new FTEs. You can see where we've kind of threw those out at. 1 new employee in the clerk of the district court, 2 caseworkers out at corrections, public information officer for the sheriff's office, an engineering tech 2 at the county engineer, and a grant coordinator over at human services. As I mentioned, the 3 largest department budgets at the beginning. If I tell you the 3 largest for FTEs, it's really the same: corrections, sheriff, and county engineer. That really kind of tells you what really kind of drives our budget on an annual basis. The last piece that I've got down here is just property tax levy, and this was kind of built at the time when with it showing the same tax levy, but that's up for discussion. Valuation came in at 3.88%. Right now, the item of discussion that we will need to have is when we talk about the pink postcard meeting, and I noted it up above that we went into this budget with the understanding that we would not be attending the pink postcard meeting. That is all driven off of 2% plus real growth. I was projecting that to be at the 4% number, and that's why we worked with 4%. That real growth number is at 1.97%, which means the max is then at 3.97 instead of the 4. So, a couple different options that we can talk about prior to the adoption of the budget is, what do we maybe need to do? Well, the first item out there is, it's kind of a no-brainer that we're going from 4 to 3.97 because our plan was not to be at the pink postcard meeting. That is about, I think that's about a $25,000 reduction. The other piece that's out there is, do we go from the 4% down to the 3.88%, which is what the valuation came in at? That reduction is at a little over $110,000. The other piece that Matt talked about last week at our staff meeting was when we were projecting the 5 versus the 4, that was going to be a little less than a quarter-cent reduction in the levy. And what I wanted to bring today was to let you know that if that's what we wanted to do, was try to stay at that, it's not a 0.25%, it's a little less than that, we'd be talking a little over $1 million reduction. So those are kind of the 3 options out there that we need to maybe decide on what do we want to do. But any of them will need to tweak the budget a little bit, which would mean tweaking expenses a little bit as well as tweaking the property tax down.
Can you give me those 3 one more time? Sorry.
So first one was going to 3.97, was just right around $25,000. Going down to the 3.88% was a little over 110,000. And then when we were talking about that change in levy that we had maybe projected, if we tried to do that, then it'd be a little over $1 million.
I mean, I'll just say right now, I have no interest in doing the 397 because that would invoke a levy increase.
Yes.
It would be a small one, but
Yes,
it would still
absolutely.
be a levy increase, and I'm not doing that. I just have
Absolutely.
no interest in that at all. I think my gut is I would say at 388, I could talk about reducing if we wanted to, but at 388 is, I think, probably where I'm at. I just want to point out real quick before we jump on. So last year, our total property tax takings after you backed out the growth was 1.78. This year, our total property tax takings after you back out the growth is 1.91. That's really good work. That is a lean government. I feel good about that. I'm proud of those numbers.
Yeah, I mean,
and you know, last year inflation was at like 7%. This year it was at like 4.5%. Like we're not even keeping up with inflation on these numbers. That's good work.
right. I mean, you know, all along we've been trying to live within the restrictions of the pink postcard.
Yeah.
And we've done it 3 years in a row.
Yeah.
And you know, and so that's not easy. And when you throw those numbers out, depending on what side you are on, I mean those are good numbers.
That's good work. I'm just really proud of that. 1.78 plus growth, 1.91 plus growth. I sleep well at night looking at those numbers.
And with that, we just had the conversation about how many bridges are back in service and all of that. So the work is continuing, the county work. We're not compromising the work of the county in any of this.
Not at all.
That feels really good,
Yeah, it
because I
does.
know that hasn't
Yeah.
always been the case. I would just add that, and this isn't this year's budget, but we're going to run into some difficult choices here because under the new state statute, we know we have some room to maneuver in most years because of slice and because of the growth figures that allow us some flexibility. But if you look at the history of that, sooner or later, there's going to come a period where those cause the 0% to go into effect. And I don't know that it's in my tenure or anyone here's
I was
tenure.
gonna say, since 1947, it's happened 3 times.
Yeah, I wasn't here that long.
I wasn't here that long either.
But I can tell you what, you lived through the last one, and so did I.
Yeah.
So
You're right.
they're not forever. And at some point, that will result in budgets of 0. And
0 plus growth.
if there is growth during the
0
time like that.
0 plus growth and.
Look, we're not the legislature.
And no. If we're going to do it, we're going to do it. 0 plus growth and understanding that the county sheriffs, the county corrections, county youth services.
40%.
That's way more like 55.
When we get to just the general fund, my 40% number is overall.
Oh, okay.
But on the general fund, which drives the property tax, I don't like to say it, but Sean's right on that one.
Oh, wow. Okay, let's just take a moment here to. Well,
Public defender, county attorney, emergency management,
Commissioner, congratulations on that.
medical services, as defined as.
So, true that now we're up to 55%, and with creative people, we might get higher, but 45% of our budget will be facing the potential for 0% increases.
Plus
And-
growth.
Plus growth, plus, yes, all those factors are
With
still in
exceptions
play.
for a vote of the people, with exceptions for emergency
Emergency.
services, with exceptions.
It seems like I've heard all this before somewhere, but anyway, my point is this. I feel some responsibility to those future boards to ensure that we continue
A healthy
to
cash reserve.
healthy cash reserve, positive sinking funds, the right fund balances, and continuing to support the infrastructure and support staff needed. So it may get complicated for us in the future to face some of those decisions. We went from 14% cash reserve to 13.2. We do that again next year, where will we be?
Yeah.
So I would just say, I'm okay with this year's budget, I like it. I will be very curious where we end up next year with what we're facing. And
I think I think that's well said. I think you're right that there's no doubt that in the new scheme, better years just have to be captured in cash reserves and savings.
Yeah.
It just has to be, and
I
that's
had a
just
state senator tell me that yesterday.
and that's not wrong. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
I mean,
not wrong at all.
and that might put us in awkward positions. I literally had a state senator say that same
Right.
thing.
No, I don't think that's inappropriate at all. Yeah. Do you have something?
I was going to say, you know, you were talking about being proud of what the county has been doing as far as managing. You know, we've been a lean government. I tell you what, I think that we really owe a big thank you to the employees and to the directors who have really managed their budgets. That's really,
Yeah.
you know, we can set that and everything, but they are the ones that are actually driving the expenses and the revenues. And so they need a great big thank you from the board.
Yeah.
Amen
Well
to
said.
that.
Very true.
Totally agree. Yeah.
So then the decision before us is, I mean, does anyone want to, let's just start here. Is anyone interested in going above 388? Yeah, I know we're still in public here, but we're just talking.
Okay,
No, I think the 388 is fine.
So then I think probably the conversation in front of us is 388 or lower. I think I'm good at sticking at 388, but do we have any more questions for Dennis? Dennis, did you have anything further?
No, that's it, so.
Okay. Are there any members of the public who wish to speak on the Lancaster County proposed budget? Any members of the public wishing to speak? Okay, seeing none, we will close the public hearing.
The next item is adjournment.
I move that we adjourn.
Second.
Motion and a second to adjourn. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Vest,
Yes.
Amundson,
Yes.
Schulte,
Yes.
Yocum,
Yes.
Flowerday.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, we will proceed to our third meeting in the morning. We will convene the Lancaster County Board of Equalization meeting for Tuesday, August 27th.
A copy of the Nebraska Open Meetings Act is located on the wall at the rear of the hearing room. All written material to be discussed at today's meeting can be viewed on the county's website at lancaster.ne.gov. Printing options are available upon request. The first item is the minutes, approval of the minutes of the Board of Equalization meeting held on Tuesday, August 20th, 2024.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Vest,
Yes.
Amundson,
Yes.
Schulte,
Yes.
Yocum,
Abstain.
Flowerday.
Abstain?
Motion carries. The next item is public hearing action items. After a public hearing has been conducted and closed, action on the item that was the subject of the public hearing will be scheduled as a separate public hearing action item. Because the public hearing has been conducted and closed on that item, no further testimony or evidence will be accepted or admitted during the public hearing action item portion of the agenda. 2A is an appeal on the rejection of a homestead exemption application from Joanne Johnson.
Why, thank you, Dan, for coming forward.
Just getting up, Commissioner.
Yeah, no, I can tell. Thanks.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do. Dan Zig, Lancaster County Attorney's Office. I believe I caught some of the commissioners before this meeting. Really, the question is whether or not at this point to grant the exemption. I believe, as I explained, there's a statute out there that allows, in the case of a mailing, that dictates when it's received and everything. Just for the sake of consistency and the precedent, I would recommend that it just be denied at this point and allow Turk to sort through that issue going forward. If they find that it was mailed timely, then Ms. Johnson's appeal could proceed, and we could look at resolving it at that time.
Yeah, and just for Krista and Sean, I think I did forward you some information about this situation. Ms. Johnson mailed in her application for homestead exemption. She'd had it 13 years previously, I believe, and for some reason it wasn't received in the clerk's office. So she found out about it at a later time after the application was, deadline was passed, and therefore we were presented with the situation where we were facing denying her the homestead and sending her to Turk. We had a motion to move this back a week for further consideration, which allowed us to talk with Mrs. Johnson and to Dan and Corey. And to Dan and Corey's great credit, I think we came to the best place possible, because I know at least Matt and I were prepared to go to jail rather than make a motion at that time. So the point being that we can support her efforts to go through Turk and get this reinstated there, even though we would like to do it here, we don't have that authority. So to her everlasting credit, Corey took Mrs. Johnson, I understand, to her office, helped her fill out the forms, prepared to file those forms after we make our decision. So Dan and Corey have just been enormously helpful to a very difficult situation here.
I appreciate the work you both have done on that, really.
No. It made me feel good about the people we're working with, I'm telling you.
Okay. Well, do we have a motion?
No.
We're still in hearing.
We're still at 2.
No, we're at the public hearing
Oh, yeah,
action items.
yeah, the action
No,
items.
the public hearing was held and
Yes,
closed.
yeah,
You
yeah,
closed
yeah.
it last week. We're just discussing the action.
Is that right? Well, did he get sworn in?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was one thing.
It's fine.
Well, at least we had that going for it, okay.
I didn't open a public hearing, so he was just taking an oath and
Just felt like he needed to say that.
just attesting to this.
Okay. I'm going to move, and I think this is right, I'm going to move that we deny the appeal of Mrs. Johnson based on the information we have before us.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Yocum,
Yes.
Best,
Yes.
Amundson,
Yes.
Schulte,
Yes.
Flowerday.
Yes.
Motion carries. The next,
More and more, I dislike BOE because we're boxed
It is.
in.
Oh, you should have been here last week. We just
Yeah.
go, and Matt came up with the idea to wait till you guys were back. So that it was horrifyingly painful, and then Corey stepped up. Till that point, it was like, I think I'll just quit. Anyway, sorry.
No, you're good. Next item up is public comment.
the next item is public comment. Members of the public wishing to speak on items relating to County Board of Equalization business not on the agenda may do so at this time.
Are there any members of the public wishing to speak on Board of Equalization business not on the agenda? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and proceed.
Item 4 is adjournment.
Move that we adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Schulte,
Yes.
Yocum,
Yes.
Best,
Yes.
Amundson,
Yes.
Flowerday.
Yes.
Motion carries.